Hey guys, you got Crave here with a Horizon Zero Dawn impressions, at least for the first 10 hours or so of the game. Now, I'm mainly a PC gamer, so you can consider that as I give you my thoughts of the game. Now, let's talk about this upload, or the game in this upload, as a, well, in a form of a pros and cons list to get some structure out of this video. So, let's go with the cons first, because, well, because. So the first con I can mention is the story of the game. It's not the most engaging story or plot I've seen in a video game. Yeah, it can be interesting, but it's also not very strong. Like I mentioned, I do notice some awkwardness in the dialogue conversations. I do feel that more emotion could have been put in certain situations in the game, especially in the early part where you are sort of with other people in a tribe, and you are at the point where you're going to get massacred. And I just feel like, it was missing that certain sense of urgency. If you know you're about to die, you could at least voice out your tension or whatever you're feeling in a more appropriate manner. It just felt very bland the way some of the script lines were delivered, and it does happen with other games, but it's just something that I noticed, and it adds to the lack in terms of the story. Now, I'll admit there is some bias in terms of why I think this is so, mainly because we do live in a world where The Witcher 3 came out. Not that that game was perfect, it had its issues, but when you think of games like The Witcher 3, it does make other games' conversations and mechanics and side quests seem so dull and unimaginative. And it also, one thing I guess that it also reminds me of Aloy and Horizon Zero Dawn is the side quest in Dragon Age Inquisition, where it was an open world game, but the side quests lacked a certain element of flavor into it. They were just not really interesting. What I would use as a good example in terms of the stuff that you, at least in terms of story delivery, if we were to compare it to another PS4 exclusive, is Uncharted 4. It was packed tightly and put together really well. I mean, sure, it didn't involve the conversation wheels, but you get what I mean. It was put together so nicely that the story just rolled the right way with the right amount of emotion, the right script lines to be delivered in a game. Yeah, it worked really well. I guess the second con I can mention about the game is, and just quickly, I know that hunters mainly hunt with their bows and their arrows. It's just that I wish that there were more options to go deeper into spear style combat. I do like rogue style combat that is up close and personal with a sneaky side to it. So yeah, I do wish that there were more variations in terms of the attacks you could do, and a little bit more maybe focus on spear style combat. Like I said, it's not just because I'm not very good with range combat in console games, but yeah, I do like variations in terms of combat. But don't get me wrong, combat in Horizon Zero Dawn is really good, especially if I'm sort of coordinated in using bows and arrows, and where it's that moment where I have good coordination with my hands. But yeah, I do wish there was more variation in terms of combat. The third con I can mention, I guess, is quickly again just the frame rates. It's a very pretty game, Aloy and her story, but and it reminds me of Uncharted 4, where the graphics were done really well. It's just that I'm using the first version of the PS4, not the PS4 Pro. So I do notice some stutters. They're especially noticeable, especially in fast-paced scenes, which is a common thing, I suppose, in consoles, and especially in combat. Even cutscenes will show it. But yeah, it's something that I notice, especially when I'm panning the camera or turning Aloy around. Yeah, it's just something I noticed. So that's con number 3. And I guess that's pretty much it. So we can now go into the pros of what makes Horizon Zero Dawn a great game. So I mentioned frame rates as a negative in the game, but actually the visuals of the game, when it works really well, it's really nice to look at. It's very pretty. It makes me wish it was available on PC so I could further enhance it, or maybe it makes me wish that I had a PS4 Pro to basically take advantage of a few things. Especially there are some menu options there which promote the use of HDR, so that means I need a display that is HDR capable. But yeah, it's very pretty even on the base version of the PS4, so that's something you want to consider. And the second pro I can think of is the crafting and gathering aspect in the game. What's amazing about this in Horizon Zero Dawn is that it's not a chore to do. There is a sense of urgency to gather most of the materials you encounter in the game as you're walking up to a different quest area or wherever you have to go, especially for health and ammo. The gear and upgrades have meaning to it, unlike most other games where you just basically craft something and you end up with something useless. Here in Horizon, it's something you might, well, not just might, but you'll really find useful, and you'll really just want to give attention to it. One of the other pros is one aspect of combat. Now, I mentioned some issues I had with combat in the game, but one of the pros it has is its impact. While, yeah, I know I am disadvantaged due to being a PC gamer by nature, the impact element of combat in Horizon Zero Dawn is really, really good. It's the spear takedowns, the spear strikes, the bow hits, and the explosions that you can do. They're all really, really done really well. I mean, when you're in combat, you can feel the tension. It's just really present in the game. And the damage you do not only shows up in terms of the numbers that are floating in the air, but it's something you really feel. And another pro in the game is the skills that you can purchase. There's a lot of skills that you can upgrade or buy as you gain those skill points when you level up. One thing about them is that they're not complicated to figure out, where you have to do a whole lot of thinking on where to spend your hard-earned skill points, and they're not overly simplistic where you feel like the skill point system was just an aside in the game. You want to put emphasis in skills that really help you with your preferred playstyle. So it's not something that is meaningless if you purchase a point. It really has meaning. So it sort of adds an element to your playstyle. Well, not all skills do this, but most of the skills that you find in Horizon really just add a different element to your playstyle, which really just enhances the playstyle you prefer. The last pro I can think of for Horizon Zero Dawn is the sound used in the game. Now, the background music in the game is done really, really well. It does give you that feeling like you're in a pretty big deal adventure and something epic is about to unfold. Even watching cutscenes makes it very entertaining, and you do feel the moment. This is especially evident in the starting part of the game, where you see Aloy, or a younger version of Aloy, just going through her training and, well, sort of starting to see the world around her and the training she has to go through and the initial stuff that she experiences. It's pretty great. The sounds in combat, the sound when interacting with things, the thud you hear, I guess it adds to one of the earlier pros I mentioned, which is combat impact. It's really just present. It's something you can really feel. While I do have to admit that voice acting could use some work, but when that aspect works, it's done really well. So overall, I can understand why the game is getting pretty high scores in most reviews. You've got a fun game that works really well. While you can't spotlight the story as something epic or stellar, it's pretty decent. It's pretty good. Not just decent, it's pretty good. Now, the combat could use more engagement in terms of spear usage, but the other aspects still feel great. It's the, well, yeah, if the other shortcomings don't really bog you down when you play it, and it has enough to make you want to explore and help unfold Aloy's story. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing how the game turns out eventually. I don't know what what the ending will be so far, but from what I can see right now, I think that Sony has a really good exclusive in their hands. So thanks for checking this out, and I'll talk to you soon.